Hi everyone, welcome to episode 2 of Spilling the Soup, a Nintendo podcast. My name is William, and we are joined today by Liam, who is calling us from the UK.
Hey everyone.
And Liam is a review editor with Nintendo Soup. I'm a news writer. We usually have Todd with us, but he is unable to join us this week, unfortunately. But yeah, what have you been up to this past week in terms of games that you've been playing or anything else Nintendo related?
Well, it was actually my birthday this week, and so I was gifted Astral Chain for my birthday, and that's been a lot of fun. Have you played it?
I've checked it out a little bit, still tempted to try out on my own, but what are your thoughts on it so far?
I've not put that much time into it at the moment. I'm only on case 2, but it's actually a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. I'm trying to do some of the maneuvers is quite tricky, but fun though, that's the main thing. But I think what I like about it the most is the sort of futuristic style of the game. It really sets it apart from anything else that's available on the Switch at the moment.
Got it. Nice. I've been a little less relevant with the games I've played. To give you an idea, I actually started doing a new playthrough of Pokemon Y just because I wanted to test out some Kalos Pokemon that I didn't have originally on my team. And that's been surprisingly fun, though I am getting to the point of the game where I need to use HMs to get around or get between towns every few minutes, which is a bit annoying and definitely makes me happy about Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon taking that out. And looks like Sword and Shield will also not be having that, so excited to have that coming. But yeah, let's jump into the hot plates. So the Hot Plates is our new section, and we're going to cover some of the big stories this week, as well as some of the top ones that were on our website. So if you go over to nintendosoup.com, over on the sidebar, you'll see what's hot, and you'll see a bunch of articles under that were things that were popular on the site this week. But we are going to start off with Ring Fit Adventure, which was announced on September 12th of this week. So this is something that was teased last week now with people using a kind of ring device with Joy-Cons in it to do things is probably the best way to describe it, because they wouldn't show us in the commercial what was on screen, what people were actually looking at. So everyone was just kind of guessing what it might be about. People really were leaning towards that it might be like a Wii Fit kind of game, where like Wii Fit Trainer comes from in Super Smash Bros. If you're familiar with that character. It was really portrayed to be kind of like a group game, though for me, when they actually revealed what it was about this week, I don't really see it that way unless there's a specific kind of mode or incentive for switching roles. But what were your thoughts on the reveal of Ring Fit Adventure?
I was actually surprised by how it looked. When I initially saw the teaser, I did think this is just going to be another Wii Fit, and Wii Fit was not something that I was interested in the slightest when it was released back in the day. But I think Ring Fit actually looks like a lot of fun because of the peripherals, and you can do a lot of different things with them. I think the ones that I saw was them like doing like stretching it and then letting it go, doing squats. I never thought I would see the day where I would be doing a squat to kill a bad guy, but that's Nintendo for you. But no, I actually thought it looked quite interesting. And there's the leg strap as well, which the second Joy-Con goes into. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that, if it's just going to be you running on the spot, or if they're going to find other ways to incorporate that in the future.
Definitely. I think it has a lot of appeal of that because of that for me as well, where you can actually kind of interact with a world and move around and defeat enemies. It just feels really kind of like a cool gimmick that I think has a lot of potential. And just to go over the description of the game briefly, earlier last week, Nintendo teased about an all-new experience for Nintendo Switch. While we've been kept in the dark for some, Nintendo finally revealed that this new experience would be a completely new game, Ring Fit Adventure. Along with this reveal, Nintendo dropped a 7-minute trailer that details Ring Fit Adventure. For starters, the fantasy-style game will be controlled with the new ring con and leg strap accessories. Instead of button inputs, moving one's body with the ring will translate into actions within the game. For example, running in real life will translate into running within the game, and actions such as stretching the ring can create a blast of air to attack enemies, and so on. Along with according to the trailer, the game will be hitting Nintendo Switch on the 18th of October. And I believe the retail price is $79.99, which includes the ring con and leg strap accessories along with the game. And that's $79.99 US dollars.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, like it mentioned, it looks pretty cool. I don't think I'm going to pick it up right away necessarily, just because of the price point, but I really would want to try this out for sure.
Yeah, I think the price point in the UK is actually not too bad. Over here it is $57.99. And to be honest, most games on consoles over here are about £50. So £8 extra doesn't seem that much to me. It's not something I think I'll pick up day one, but I do think that, at least based on the trailer that they released for the game, it does look like people will actually be doing proper amounts of exercise, which is something Nintendo obviously really wants to push. The one thing I thought about it, I do remember Nintendo talking about a thing called, I think it was quality of life software. That was quite a while ago. They talked about that, and they said this was going to be something that they would release alongside the Wii U and the 3DS, and that never surfaced. So I wonder if this is something that is a part of that quality of life thing that they've been working on over the last few years.
Yeah, I immediately thought of that also, because this feels a little more Nintendo based and integrated than other fitness games I've seen on the Switch.
Yeah.
I tried out Fitness Boxing demo, and it was okay. It felt a little more like just a workout class that I could check out either online or purely treat as a game. So I wasn't super invested in it necessarily, but this has a bit more integration of both, and I think is going to intrigue a lot of people, to be sure. Yeah,
I think so. I think with this coming out and then Pokemon the following month, Nintendo are pretty much just looking to printing money at this point.
Definitely. I wonder if this could be incorporated into other games as well.
Yeah, it'd be good if they can incorporate it into more than just the one game, for sure.
Oh, I think one point I heard was that hopefully won't turn out like the pad for a Wii Fit, where it's just you only use it for that basically, and then you don't have any other reason to pull it out. Especially because this has the leg accessory. I think it's where it has the potential as well to be used in things like VR, potentially.
Yeah, well, that's actually a good point you make, because in the trailer for the Ring Fit Adventure, the person that has the leg strap on, they're using it to run, to make their character move. So that actually could be something that's interesting with the Nintendo VR.
Right, and I think we also got a hint of a VR patent for Nintendo getting confirmed. So this could be the first step to actually integrating that. Though this is, I think, also another thing I want to be completely sure before getting this game, is that for us, since over here in the US it's about $80 to purchase, is it a full game as much, or is it going to be more like the Wii Fit? Because at that point, I think that's also a commitment that people have, and I think that you really want to be sure of it, especially if you use your Switch a lot on the go, because I don't see this being very usable on mobile, because that could be pretty distracting. So just analyzing the trailer a bit more, there's a ton of different exercises you can do. Like you mentioned, you can hold a squat and kill enemies with it depending on how long you hold it and return the attack out. a bow pull so you can do a little bit of archery, and overhead lunge twirl to do something as well.
Overhead lunge twirl.
The thigh press. So it feels like a pretty holistic body workout, which is impressive. I think it could just be a really fun way to exercise, which I think is sometimes the barrier for a lot of people, is that exercise can be kind of distracting or not motivating if there isn't something to focus on. And if you're someone who's used to video games, this could be a pretty fun way of doing it.
Yeah, but getting yourself involved. Whatever you think of Ring Fit Adventure, whether you think it's for you or not, one thing we can all agree on is that it's very Nintendo.
Yes, very. Though I will say the aesthetic, the kind of color palette I've seen of the game reminds me a lot of something that might come out from Microsoft. I'm not sure if it's just like the Xbox feel or something, but did you see any of that?
Yeah, seeing the characters that you play as in the game, it kind of reminds me of, what was that, Connect Adventures?
Yes.
I think it was called. It kind of reminds me of that.
I think that's what I was thinking of as well. As always, I think Nintendo has a pretty good advantage in the kind of gimmick side of the games that it puts out.
Yeah, definitely.
Regarding the trailer itself, what did you think about the hosts?
Very Stepford Wives.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought they were a little bit too enthusiastic. Seemed a little bit crazy on the inside. It was a bit bizarre.
I'll link the trailer for Ring Fit Adventure in the description, of course, if you guys want to check that out. To me, it feels like they've recorded this scene or that take for them talking to the camera at least 30 times, because if you look closely at the guy's eyes, they're bloodshot, and I'm not sure why. But I'm just fascinated and a little perturbed by what how they're presenting it. I think it might have been better if they had just done it voiced over and shown everything else except for them standing there.
Yeah, I agree. I wonder if they had the two hosts, maybe it was they had them record like a normal version and then they try like a more crazy erratic version, and then they went with that one. Not too sure why, because I've seen a lot of people on social media say, what on earth was that about the hosts?
Yeah.
So I don't think it went down too well with that many people.
Right. It was just a little weird because they didn't really do much and they were mostly distracting since we're talking about them. I think that's a big part of a commercial. Like if you're distracted by the host, you're probably not going to concentrate too much on what they're talking about.
Unless that was part of Nintendo's plan.
Maybe. I don't know. They seem completely new, so I have no idea what they're what if they're going to continue doing these commercials, or they're going to have someone different for doing games with Ring Fit Adventure. So we'll see. But definitely an interesting casting choice. But yeah, that's basically it for Ring Fit Adventure. Interesting to see that it is cheaper over in the UK than here. I do know that might have to do with tariffs going up in the US. We'll see how this does in the coming holiday season. That'll be interesting to see, since it does come out mid-October about. So we'll probably be getting some traction by the time Thanksgiving and December come along.
Yeah, I think it'll sell quite well.
Yeah, it stands out. It seems fun. It really is interesting to both hardcore players and I think people who are maybe novices and don't necessarily play a ton of video games. Yeah. But overall, really excited to see what happens with it.
Same.
Okay, that was Ring Fit Adventure. Moving on to the Switch Lite. So the Switch Lite is the new mobile-only version of the Nintendo Switch and will be coming out September 20th. But we've actually gotten to see a sneak preview of it because it was released a bit early on September 11th in Georgia, actually. A Walmart put out the product and people have been scooping it up already. Someone might be getting in trouble for that. It gives us a look at what people can expect. So, lucky player David Reed purchased a yellow Nintendo Switch Lite 9 days before its official September 20th release at a Walmart in Georgia, and has actually showed it off in a video. So, what do you think about the Switch Lite, and what do you think about this oopsie in the release date?
Oopsie indeed. The Nintendo Switch Lite is not something I've really looked into because I'm quite happy with my original Switch. Still hoping that Nintendo are going to announce a Pro at some point, maybe 2020 when Breath of the Wild 2 maybe gets a release date.
Yeah.
But the Lite, I mean, I can see why they're releasing it, especially with Pokemon coming out in November. It's a very smart move by Nintendo. Again, they're going to sell bucket loads of this. And I think the colours are pretty cool. I like the turquoise one best.
Definitely. I am a fan of all of them so far. Turquoise for sure stands out to me. I think it's just neat to see a different version of a system come out anytime, if it's like the Lite version or the Pro version. But as you mentioned, super smart move with Nintendo to give this cheaper and I think a little more kid associated version of their console now that Pokemon's coming out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's what some people might be forgetting when they're kind of complaining that why did Nintendo do this? Why are they releasing the Switch Lite? Because we wanted the Pro. It's like, well, they're a business and they know that parents or kids want to get their systems as well. So if they make them a little more affordable and maybe make it a little more oriented to people who are on the go and might not have their own TV, there will be some appeal to that.
And I think most people, at least from what I know, I think most people do play their Switches in handheld mode. So it kind of makes sense for them to release a handheld version only. And that just seems to make sense to me.
Like for me, with my experience with consoles, I had the Wii to start off as a home console and basically everything DS Lite onwards. Except for when we got to the 3DS, I held off on that and got the 2DS when that came out because I didn't really need the 3D. There wasn't a lot of games that I think needed that for me. And basically everyone I'd ever talked to at that point who had been using a 3DS was like, oh yeah, I turned it on for like 5 seconds and got a headache and turned it back off. So 2DS just worked out for me for what I needed, and I think that's what the Switch Lite is supposed to be. And overall, is just going to be a practical use for people who use it exactly for that Switch on the go. Yeah.
I think the only thing is, obviously, this console called the Nintendo Switch, and with it being a handheld console now, and the Joy-Cons can't come off, so you can't even hold it in like desk view. So what exactly do you switch?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I was not completely sure that they had thought about that part in the naming when they're like, when they were
maybe we should have called it Nintendo Switchless.
Yes, there you go. I do like the potential pun with Lite, however. But yeah, that I think I could definitely see that being a reason why people are kind of upset or confused about this, because the whole point of the Switch was to be able to switch between the docked and the handheld mode. But I think they want to keep that branding still, and people might be confused if you introduce another term for it when it's basically the same thing. Like I mentioned, 2DS, 3DS, 2DS seems to be redundant and a bit confusing at first because technically everything that was before the 3DS was a 2DS. So I'm like, are you referring to the non-3D 3DS, or are you referring to the DS, DS Lite, etc.?
Well, I mean, it worked for the 2DS, so I don't think that this branding for the Switch Lite will really be a problem. It just seems a bit odd.
Yeah, it's just a little odd, not necessarily a big complaint. We'll see how it turns out and how people receive it. I've definitely explained it to a few friends who I know want to get Switches and haven't been aware that the Switch Lite was a thing. So that might change once it actually comes out and people see it in stores. And I think the colors, as you mentioned, make it stand out a lot, and hopefully will let people know that this is different from the regular Nintendo Switch and might catch their eye more.
I just wonder what other colors they'll release in the future, because obviously they're going to do it.
Right. And the designs I've seen for other alternative versions or the custom versions look great. I saw a fan that did one that has a Game Boy edition, and that looks awesome,
right.
Honestly. We do know, right, and we do know they have the Pokemon Sword and Shield edition coming out as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure
I like
what
that
other
one,
ones.
the blue and the pink.
The blue and the pink one? Oh,
I think that's the only 4. So there's turquoise, yellow, the sort of space grey one, and then the Pokemon pink and blue. They're the only confirmed ones so far. But Nintendo obviously are well known for releasing different colours over the years, over the lifespans of their consoles. So there will be more Nintendo Switch Lite colours coming at some point. So yeah, I think there'll be a lot of good choice out there.
Yeah, I'd love to see some of the Joy-Con colors used for the Nintendo Switch Lite palette, since this won't have Joy-Cons on it that you can switch out. So kind of seeing how the Switch would look like if it were completely that color would be pretty cool. Like red would be kind of nice to see. Oh, I did get a new handheld only Joy-Con that has a D-pad on it. And specifically, it was the Pikachu design. So that would be awesome to see, where it kind of has like the black and yellow lightning bolts all over it.
Yeah.
But yeah, any other thoughts on the Nintendo Switch Lite coming out September 20th? Officially, it's out in Georgia, so if you're
officially, let's not forget the word officially there.
Exactly. Moving on to some other stories. Sakurai was actually in the news for 2 things. One of them was that he actually went to the Tokyo Game Show, which was in Tokyo, of course, and Masahiro Sakurai is the creator of Super Smash Bros. And received awards on behalf of Nintendo and everyone else who worked at the game there. During the awards, he made some interesting comments about the game. In particular, he said he had fulfilled his final mission for late President Satoru Iwata. So, looking at the comments specifically, translated from Nintendo Soup, I'm thankful for receiving such a tremendous award today. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has achieved many things up till this day. For example, the game has become Nintendo's fastest selling software. And of course, around the world and in Japan, we have received great responses from the new Challenger teaser videos. In addition to that, we've included so much content in the game that we have a record-breaking amount of IP collaborations never seen before. Thus, at this time, we are making more DLC for the game. Besides all I have mentioned, I have to share with you how the game has personally affected me. The act of creating Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo Switch is, to me, accomplishing my final mission for late Nintendo President Satoru Iwata. I can't say whether he is happy about it in the other world, because once someone passes on, that's it. There is something I learned from Iwata-san. What you can do now, do it at your fullest potential. That phrase remains very important to me. So, really heartwarming message from Sakurai here as he took out the award for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and also gave us a little bit of insight into his connection with the late president Satoru Iwata. Yeah, I think it's really sweet. He's mentioned this before in some interviews, how this was kind of the final mission that he got from him. He has accomplished that on so many levels, clearly.
Oh, absolutely.
Just seeing the popularity of the game and seeing all the characters coming in here, as he mentions it all basically in this quote, getting all of these third-party characters to join the game is probably nothing easy in itself. We don't even know how much more is going to come to the game in terms of the DLC fighters and who they're going to be. So it's just really nice, and he definitely deserves this recognition. And it's really nice that really nice to see him kind of pay tribute to Satoru Iwata for that.
I think it was very well deserved. Smash Brothers on Switch is a great feat. They've really taken a game from the Wii U, which already felt like where else can you go with it, and they have managed to push the franchise further. So they really do deserve that. And I think the comments about Iwata were lovely, and it's great that they were able to openly discuss it with fans.
Definitely, yeah. It's cool to see that, because there's also just a little insight sometimes from Nintendo about what they want to reveal about the game in history and creation, stuff like that. So always nice to get that kind of information.
Definitely.
Other than that, we have another quote from Sakurai that I think people might be a little more triggered about. So now Sakurai, the creator of Super Smash Bros., has made yet another interesting comment at the awards, when he told those present at the awards that he is well aware of the many people outside Japan who ask for Iron Man and Goku to be added as playable characters in Super Smash Bros. Since Super Smash Bros. Is obviously a game that celebrates gaming, that's probably not going to happen. His comment reads, "There are many people overseas who keep asking, when is my favorite Iron Man coming in Smash Bros? And when is my favorite Goku coming in Smash Bros? I'm well aware of these requests, but the fundamental thing to note is the fighters and other content that appear in Super Smash Bros. Come from video games." So this is something he's iterated a ton of times, and I think a lot of people just either don't pay attention to him saying this or really understand that Super Smash Bros. Is about the gaming, and it's about, to me at least, the legacy and history of gaming represented by characters from a ton of different franchises. And while Iron Man and Goku have been in their own video games, or even been in things like Marvel vs. Capcom or other fighting games, they're both characters who have their roots in graphic novels, manga, and comic books, to be specific. And I always kind of get annoyed at having to explain that to people who feel like they just want it to, because I don't know. I don't really get why people want it in their game. Maybe just because I think they associate these characters as big icons in pop culture, so maybe that's why they want to group them all together. But what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I can understand why people would want Goku in there, because Dragon Ball Z games are super popular, and there are a couple of them on Nintendo Switch, so I can see why people would want Goku in there. And I think the sort of aesthetic of Goku would fit quite well in Smash Brothers. Iron Man, I don't get. I don't see how the aesthetic of Iron Man would fit into Smash Brothers. Like when they add in characters like Banjo-Kazooie, Snake, Sonic, Bayonetta, they just fit like the aesthetic of and the essence of Smash Brothers. I just don't think Iron Man would. But I think people probably just think that these characters can fit because they've been in a video game. And that's almost not the case. And I think if they started adding in characters from pop culture, where does it end? And we're going to start getting like random people from like Game of Thrones, something like that. Jordan Daenerys takes on Mario.
There we go. We see the clown from It just not killing everyone.
Pennywise takes down Peach.
Yes, there you go. It just feels unrealistic in many ways to do that, both in terms of the vision of the game and also how much work it takes to get licensing for a character like that, especially if when they're not in a franchise that's in the same kind of medium. But I don't know if it's like younger fans or just people who are new to Smash Bros. But are dying to see everything Iron Man or see everything Goku in another one. But it's a perspective that just seems a little bizarre to me if you pay some attention to the details of the game specifically.
Yeah. And we talk about licensing. I think like I could see Goku going into it just because Dragon Ball Z obviously is crazy popular in Japan, but I think its popularity has waned a lot in the West. So I could see the benefit of the people that created Dragon Ball Z to license to Nintendo for that extra publicity. But Iron Man, Marvel, Disney, they don't need it. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you brought up. How, yeah, you're right. I definitely could see companies saying, "Hey, can you put my character in there to get recognition?" Like there are probably countless indie developers or creators who have a character and want to get their name out there. Super Smash Bros. Might be the way to do it, but that just seems a little insane to try to put everyone that you can in it, and probably not necessarily good for the quality of the game itself if you're just taking requests in to do that, which is why it's great to have Sakurai as someone who's been with it from the beginning, really making the cut and deciding who gets in, because he knows what it's about and he is knowledgeable about video games specifically is what he's talked about.
And obviously he is all about the quality of the games. He's not just going to let any character in. It has to be someone that's unique, and it has to be someone that's going to bring something different to the game. If you just keep adding in tons and tons of characters that are rubbish or all just have the same sort of moves, it's not really going to add anything and will just bloat the game.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that we actually did see a tangential character to Goku and to the Dragon Ball series make its way into the game in the form of Hero from Dragon Quest, since it actually has the same artist and designer for the characters as the Dragon Ball series. I think this is probably the closest we'll get to that in terms of having a Dragon Ball character in the game. And I think it should be something that people might want to try out now that we have the demo, we have the game on Switch. It just would be really fun and kind of eye-opening for people to see, hey, the people behind the show, the comic book, the movie, whatever you watch, do other things. And in this case, they do video games.
Yeah. The one that I always see people asking for to go into Smash is Rayman.
Oh, yes. He's definitely a character I've seen people ask for, though I don't really know too much about him except for he might be inside the stage of Battlefield, I believe, or Final Destination. Right. Yeah, it looks like his outline is there.
See, I see a lot of people asking for Rayman, but personally, I have a vendetta against Ubisoft. Just because Rayman Legends was supposed to be an exclusive for the Wii U back in the day, and then because the Wii U wasn't selling that great, they held it back so they could make it multi-console. And I was raging at the time because I was still looking forward to that game, and I'm still mad about it. So no Rayman in Smash.
You're right. So, is there any way Ubisoft can make it up to you?
No.
All right, then. Well, now you know. Ubisoft.
Sorry, Ubisoft.
You lost Leo. But yeah, I think that's kind of my thoughts on having Goku in Smash. Though what's really fun to see is that with the different designs for the heroes in Super Smash Bros. Now that Hero is in the game from Dragon Quest XI, but you have all the different color palettes and design changes, it almost feels like you have Gohan in there, you have Trunks in there, and other characters that just have the same kind of basic design as Dragon Ball characters, given that it's the same artist, which I think is hilarious in its own right. Let's see. That's basically it for Smash Bros. We have a bit of news about Pokemon now. So earlier this week, people actually found a glitched Pokemon on Pokemon Sword and Shield's website. Then the article reads, the Pokemon Company appears to have unveiled a new Pokemon coming to Pokemon Sword and Shield in a rather strange and unique way. On the Pokemon Sword and Shield website, a new page has popped up for a brand new, never-seen-before Pokemon. However, almost all the details, including what it looks like, have been masked by some kind of glitching effect. The only details that can be made out are the following, which is the typing, that it's a censored Pokemon, so you can't even tell what it says there. It weighs 257.9 pounds. Sorry for anyone in the UK or outside the US trying to figure that out. Has the ability Steadfast, and the description reads, with a few parts covered out and censored, only blank that have survived many battles can attain this blank. When this Pokemon's blankers, it will retire from combat. So not a lot to go off on, but what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, I think I'd read on Nintendo Switch's website that people were believing it to be a Galarian Farfetch'd.
Yes, that is the theory that seems to be the most popular right now. And there's a bit of
holding a giant leek.
Yeah, and using its tail as a weird leaf shield that it can take off. I kind of like it.
Yeah. It's weird, but I quite like it. I just thought it was funny that the sword was a giant leek.
Yeah,
parents across the world trying to get the children to eat a leek.
Right? It's if maybe the description is trying to say that if they don't get eaten, since Farfetch'd is known for being a popular meal, it will evolve into this tough 250 plus pound bird, apparently.
And people eat it? That's so mean.
Well, the Farfetch'd's original Pokédex entry says that it's a delicious meal that people always are trying to have, and the leek can be used to supplement the soup that you can make from it. So it's one of those Pokemon that has a... Yeah, you weren't aware of that?
The people living in the Galarian region are kind of evil.
No, no. That's actually the original Pokédex entry from the
right.
Kanto form. Yeah, so
Kanto people are messed up,
right? But apparently, it's an international thing because several of its Pokédex entries have listed that. But I think one of the theories that people have posted to kind of fill in the blanks are only Farfetch'd that have survived many battles can attain this form. When this Pokemon's leek withers, it will retire from combat, which I think fills in pretty well. But yeah, what do you think are some names for this? Other ones that people have suggested are Galarian Farfetch'd, Surfetch'd, Nightfetch'd, Brawlerfetch'd, things in that territory.
I think it has to have something to do with the fact that it's holding a giant leek. Leek-fetch'd, vegetable-fetch'd.
Maybe, yeah.
You're not eating me today, fetched. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, it looks kind of cool. I wonder why they released it in this glitched form. Because I don't think anything else has been teased in this way before, but definitely a nice way of them to just get publicity and people to talk about it, which is smart for anyone to do.
Yeah, it's probably been the publicity angle. I wonder if them revealing the other Pokemon as part of Directs is maybe not had the amount of buzz that they were expecting. So maybe this way it's generated a bit of press for them this week.
Right, just to build up some anticipation for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks pretty fun though. I'm excited to see what they do with it. Farfetch'd is one of those Pokemon that I think people have wanted an evolution for a long time, just because it's kind of cute and a rare little Pokemon that you don't necessarily find too easily. But giving it a reason to be used in battle would make it a lot more popular, I think, and just more feasible as something that you actually use in your adventure.
Yeah.
I like just going back to what I've been doing this week with Pokemon Y. I have been frustrated because I'm trying to build a team that has some variety to it and use some new megas, or just use megas, I mean. And all of the mega stones are, or at least a good chunk of them, aren't available until post-game. And that's been super frustrating to get. And hopefully if they ever remake that, they'll fix that part of it. But I also don't want to see things like Galarian Farfetch'd or any Galarian forms that people are looking forward to not be available until the very end of the game in Sword and Shield.
Yeah, I think they need to be careful as well with Pokemon Go and the effect that had on Sun and Moon. X and Y was the first Pokemon game that I played in quite a few years, and I absolutely loved playing that one. But when Pokemon Go came out and then you transitioned to Sun and Moon, the mixture of the new, like the ice, for example, Iceville picks, and then a lot of the original 150 Pokemon appearing in that so often, it gave me a bit of fatigue of Pokemon. So I really hope that they're not going to have too many Galarian versions of classic Pokemon, because it makes the game feel a little bit less fresh, to me anyway. And so I hope that it's a good mix of new variants of classic Pokemon, but lots of new ones as well.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I definitely want to make sure that this feels unique enough where I am not just putting Galarian in front of all the Pokemon that I want to be using in it, because I want there to be just that region's form, no other variant of it as well. So I think where we're at now, I could see maybe one or two more Galarian forms coming in and being okay with that. I think Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon had about 10, maybe a little less than that. So hopefully they don't pass that limit as well and have a good balance of new versus variant types.
Yeah, agreed.
Regional variants to be specific. One other one that we could talk about, I think, is Fire Emblem Three Houses, where there was a patch that came out recently adding things like maddening mode, which is another level of difficulty to the game. The update also included a patch that replaces a piece of dialogue that you have with one of the characters. Namely, it looks like the update tones down the backstory of Bernadetta, a student from the Black Eagles. Originally, one of her lines of dialogue mentioned some touchy abuse at the hands of her family, but the latest update omits some of the more possibly disturbing descriptions. The change was noted by some users on GameFAQs and Resetera, who posted the following screenshots for the comparison. So the dialogue reads, originally for Bernadetta, who is a kind of secluded, introverted character from the Black Eagles house, to train me to be a good, submissive wife, he'd do things like tie me to a chair and leave me there all day, challenging me to stay quiet. And after the update, it now reads, to train me to be a good wife, he'd do things like tie me to a chair. While Nintendo has stated that it will not force content changes onto third-party developers, the company has a known history of altering and censoring some of its first-party games in the West. One of the most famous examples was the removal of Skinship, a minigame from the Western release of Fire Emblem Fates. While it's not as extreme here, it looks like Nintendo also felt it necessary to make this one line seem less unnerving to audience. As it stands, we don't know if there are any other lines of dialogue that were affected by this update, but that seems to be it so far. Other than that, the update has also changed the voice actor for Byleth. So yeah, what are your thoughts on this? I think you mentioned that you have played Fire Emblems, but I was wondering if you were familiar with this character, Bernadetta?
No, I wasn't familiar with this character, but I have to say, reading what the original text was, I'm glad they changed it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's quite dark.
It is pretty dark, and in some ways that dark surprise and that kind of level of intensity, I think, really fleshed out the character, because you basically see this character running away from people and thinking that everyone's kind of out to get her. And then you learn about this story of abuse that she had growing up. And the change really isn't a lot in my idea, because in some ways, a lot of the things that were mentioned in the first one can still be implied from the second updated quote. And I think it's fine. I'm just interested in the reason why they changed it now and not something that when they were first writing the localized version of this.
I wonder if when they've been doing the translation of it, if maybe it's just been someone that's not picked up on the nuance of saying things like a good submissive wife. I mean, I can understand their the sort of storytelling that they want to go for, but it just seems a little bit dark for not only a Fire Emblem game, but a Nintendo game. It just seems a little bit too dark.
It does particularly touch on some tones of sexism and like home abuse, which I think might be the main reasons it was pulled and edited. But within the game itself, there are characters who tell you, not to spoil who they are, but there are characters who will tell you that they were experimented on and they now have 5 years to live, basically. So there are some characters like that in the game specifically who share their support conversations with you. So I would say that it still has a ton of dark tones to it, but this one might seem a little closer to home, so you could see that being the reason behind it. Yeah. And it feels a little more natural for her to say the second update, actually, or to say the second quote, actually, because it feels like a mouthful and less realistic of someone describing it the way that she does in the original line of text.
Yeah.
The other one, the first quote feels more like a writer's put it down, and the second quote feels more like something that someone would say. So I do like that change for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Other than that, not much else to say here. Updates out. Let us know if you've tried out maddening mode, which I think I will try for my final playthrough of the game. It can get pretty hard if you kind of grind through it, even if you have all the support levels and your professor level up. So I'm interested to see what people think about it. So that was it for our hot plates section. Now we'll be moving on to, since we were talking about a potential Galarian Farfetch'd or a Galarian form that might be revealed in the censored picture on the Pokemon Sword and Shield website, what do you guys want to see as a Galarian form? Did you want to talk about any sales potentially that you saw on the eShop?
The one of the games that I've seen on sale on the eShop here in the EU is that all the Mega Man games are currently on sale. So that includes Mega Man 11, which if you haven't checked it out, check it out because it's a lot of fun. And the ones like the Legacy collections are all on sale and they're down to under £10. So if you're looking for some 2D fun, definitely check them out.
Got it. Nice. For me, I think most of the sales changed in the last 2 days, the ones that I was looking at. But I would probably recommend checking out Etherborn, which is a game that was revealed, I think, at E3 this year or a little earlier. But it seems like a cool platformer where you manipulate gravity to get around. And you're like a transparent version of a person with all your organs visible, and it's down from $16.99 to $13.59 on the North American eShop. All right, that looks like that's it for today. Hopefully we will have Todd back next week as well to join us for the podcast. And thank you to everyone who's tuned in for episode 2 of Spilling the Soup, a Nintendo podcast. Feel free to comment, as always, your thoughts, questions down below, and we'll try to answer them in next week's episode.
See you next time.